So I want to talk to you about taking your past, owning it, and transforming it into an asset that you can use. And this is about taking this psychological idea of trauma and converting it into something practical. Because again, one of the common problems with this whole space, with this whole psychology thing, is that the people who are talking to you about it, the psychologists, the woo that they bang on about, they're incentivized to bullshit you. They're incentivized to try to get you to do rounds of therapy. They're incentivized not to lead you towards success, because those people were never successful themselves. They're incentivized to transform you into someone who's over intellectual, instead of teaching you how psychology can be used by you to turn into something powerful. Now, trauma is probably one of the most interesting things, because trauma is massively overblown. Trauma is not as big of a deal as you make it out to be. But of course, it is very, very real. I've dealt with veterans who have gone out and shot people in war zones and seen kids get killed and suffered from post-traumatic stress disorder. It is a very, very, very real thing. But of course, then I go into the world of psychology and I see what's going on, and you see like losers, dorks, sitting around complaining about, I don't know, getting upset because someone farted at them when they were younger or something like that, or they were called names in school. And that stuff can have an impact. That stuff can have a residual impact upon you. But dwelling on it and lathering it in jargon and nonsense is not the way to solve that problem. That's not how you overcome trauma. So here's how you overcome trauma. And I've done this with people quite a lot. First of all, you have to take the mindset that the goal is not to overcome trauma for its own sake. And I'm going to use an analogy from the body. So for example, if you got a traumatized muscle, if you damaged your muscle, if you got an injury, what would your goal be? Would your goal be to stop using your arm? And then would your goal be to rehab your arm and just leave it at that? Never. That's the stupidest idea ever. Obviously, you want to rehab your arm so you don't feel any more pain. But the purpose of your body is so it functions so that you can use it. You can use it to punch people. You can use it to lift things up. You can use it to go out into the world and achieve things. Maybe even become an athlete of some sort. The point of your body is to give you capacity to function in the world, to do things. And the things you need to do are the goal. The things you need to do are the things that you must contextualize your behavior within. So for example, I meet an awful lot of people in the gym that are mobility experts, that are weightlifting and all this type of stuff, and these people lack goals usually. So they're aimless. So they're wasting their time doing all these incredibly strange and excessive regimes with very, very poorly thought out goals. For example, if you speak to a fighter or a gymnast or a proper bodybuilder who's not trying to destroy himself with steroids, these people all have clear visions about why they're doing things. They have a conception in their heads about what they're up to. A fighter is doing certain things to achieve competency fighting. And this, and I know it sounds weird, but this is everything. This helps them overcome any injuries that they have, because it gives them a focus. It gives them something that they can project themselves towards. This is really important, because if you think about something like trauma, you had a terrible past, you had someone wounded you, someone hurt you. Yes, this is true, but ultimately your ability to project a goal out of your life, say if you did achieve psychological health, what would you do with it? What would you work towards? How would you be idealizing yourself if you overcame your trauma? That should be your first question, because that helps you contextualize everything. The reason why that is, again, back to the bodybuilding thing or the physical thing, is that if I am a fighter, we'll say, I'm always thinking about being able to fight, being capable, good enough to fight. And what you realize when you start putting that mindset in your head is that you don't need to be perfect. You don't need to be perfect. And this is really important, because pain is very mental. So if you think that there's even this tiny niggle of pain and you can't fight, you will never succeed in fighting. You will almost always enter a fight with an injury, with a nag, with a sniggle of some sort. I just made the word sniggle up. You will always do this, because when you go into a fight, you have a lot of different weapons. You have your hands, we'll assume kickboxing. You can also use your knees, your elbows, your feet, your shins. You can do all of these. So say, for example, you have a sore knuckle. You've got a broken wrist or something like that. You can actually learn to be a very competent fighter and win a fight without using your left hand properly. Maybe you use your left hand to just kind of touch or something like this, but you don't use it to punch or something like that. And the thing is your opponent will never notice, and you can certainly win that way. You can certainly come up with a strategy to solve that way. So how healed do you need to be in order to succeed? Very fucking low. Okay? Now there might be a situation where you've got a broken leg. you know, and you can't walk, or you have a torn tendon, that's obviously more serious. But even rehabilitating yourself up to functionality is not that crazy either. And this is key. You need to think like this. You need to think towards actual functional performance and focus on winning despite the injuries, because if you don't, you start to sell yourself short. You start to make problems of perfectionism. And again, this is a very weird thing about pain. If you have a damaged knuckle and you have no thing to discipline yourself towards, the knuckle, your brain creates the feeling of pain very largely in your head. There's science behind this I'm not going to go into. So for example, you have a broken knuckle, you'll say to yourself, oh, well, I still feel it a tiny bit. I still feel it a little bit. I better keep resting. And you'll never get back to functionality. And in fact, in order for you to properly reactivate and get that knuckle back online after it's spent 6, 8, 12 weeks healing, you actually do need to begin to use it. This is what the rehab is about. And that will be painful. It will be sore. In order for you to re-engage your nervous system and get it connect back to this part of your body, it will be like, ow, it hurts. It hurts. So pain is a part of this experience. Trauma is a part of this experience. Trauma is always going to hurt. You're always going to feel pain. You're never going to be perfect. And understanding performance is the thing to contextualize this. And that's a psychological reality that no one teaches you, that no one sits down and talks to you in a real sense. They get you to obsess about the trauma with no projection about how to go forward. And this is why you're stuck, always thinking that there's something wrong with you. Because no one says that, yes, there's something wrong with us all. We're all hurt. You go into a fight, and it's well known that you're going into a fight. The other guy has a sore knee, a bruise in his arm that stops his bicep contracting. He maybe got a concussion a while ago or something like that. He's got like a sore liver. There's always something. There's a broken ankle there that's only barely healed. There's always something. But the thing is that they go anyway. They fight anyway, because this is what life is about. This is what your reality is about. So once you get that first principle down, it changes everything, because it gets you to take a different attitude. You're trying to recover to the point where you can perform again. And then ultimately, all you need to do is rest and then perform. Try to keep your thing safe while you're performing, and just give it time and try to bring back function. And that will do an awful lot of the work. And stop allowing yourself to get trapped in the victimhood of perfection. Okay, that's the first thing. Because that's actually just a coward's excuse. Oh, I'm not perfect, therefore I can't try. Coward's excuse. Life doesn't think that way. If life thought that way, we would be gods. You know, gods are perfect. We are not. We are broken beings. We are fallen. And that's fine. We can still, despite our existential problem, succeed in many profound ways. Okay? Now, a really important thing is that you sit down and understand trauma and the healing aspect. Because the physical aspect of healing trauma is the same as the mental aspect. If you want to heal, to overcome a trauma, you need to sit down and say to yourself, all right, how does this work? What's the process towards healing a trauma? I can't just get traumatized and be broken forever. There must be some type of healing process. So look at the way your body works. You damage your bicep, you damage a muscle. And what your body does is it freezes up that area. It creates tension. And it has this thing called fascia, which is almost like this, I don't know, sticky skin that just pulls everything tense. And what happens then is that you can't function. The muscle can't work. So you see it get inflamed and then you can't really move it. You know, like it's really, really sore. And if you try to lift stuff up, you're like, ah, fuck. And this is your body seizing it up. Why is your body doing this? Because it doesn't want you to use it. If you start stretching out your muscle fully, you probably rip more fibers and damage it more. So your body just holds it together. It seizes it up and it doesn't let you use it. Your body doesn't trust you. Your unconscious says, I'm securing, I'm locking down, lockdown, quarantining the area. You don't get to use this bicep. Figure something out, you fucking idiot. And then it's trapped. And it's a very good idea for you to rest at this point. This is the common wisdom, just like what do you do to fix an injury? Just don't fucking use it for a while. Stop what you're doing, sit down, bit of ice in it, calm down, rest, leave it alone for a while. It'll be absolutely fine. And you give it a couple of weeks. Generally speaking, most injuries are going to need about 6 weeks. Some more severe injuries will be a little bit longer. Okay. With psychological trauma, it's similar, but like bigger time scale. So 6 months to 18 months. So for example, your injury is done, the fascia locks down. And what this fascia does is that it holds the injury in place and it makes it very, very secure. So what happens over time is that it gets stiff. But this is fine. This is part of the healing process. It's like a spider creating a cocoon over the space. And then after 6 months, the tissues will be, after 6 weeks, the tissues will be repaired. And the bicep would actually be perfectly fine. And it could fully do what it did before with no problems. It's fully healed. Your body is amazing. That whole process happened by itself. Phenomenal. Now, what's interesting is that even though it's like that, because the space is frozen, maybe it's shortened a little bit, maybe the fascia has come over it and it's restricted it, so it actually hurts to move. It hurts for you to use that part of your body. So if you try to flex that bicep, you're saying like, I'm going to flex for the girls or something like this, what will happen is it will hurt. And you will think, because the injury was there, you'll be like, oh, it's still injured. It's still injured. And this is a common thing. And if you don't reactivate that, if you don't actually go through that pain and turn that muscle back on, what will happen is that the fascia will stay there, and you'll start to rehabilitate your bicep, but use it in a different way. We call this a compensation pattern. So you'll learn to use your arm by not using the bicep. You'll do this weird fucking shit where you lift things up the wrong way around, and you use, you know, the opposite of your arm, or like your fore, or whatever. And this is very, very common. Now, you injure your leg, you injure your back, and so you start using your hamstrings instead of your glutes, or your quads instead, all this type of stuff. And what this then does is this creates a tension pattern across your body. So all of a sudden now, my shoulder gets sore because I'm lifting things up wrong. And the actual problems, that was my bicep that was fucked up, but now my shoulder's getting sore, so I start to think, oh, now I've got a shoulder problem. Well, woe is me, I guess I'm just broken. You go and you get like people to fix your shoulder, and then they do all these exercises for the shoulder, but that doesn't change anything, because the actual problem is the biceps turned off. And this spirals over the years, and it can lead to, you know, like literally leaving your arm starts to atrophy because it's not working properly, and you stop using it, and you turn into fucking little Gollum, and then you go and write in the internet about how injuries were. It's ridiculous, okay? And the correct way to solve this problem with the body is to sit down, get a professional to come in, you can do it yourself, of course, and do rehabilitation exercises targeted to the injury, okay? So if you hurt your bicep, oftentimes you might even go back to the exercise that you hurt it on, do it at incredibly light weights for way higher repetitions to just get the feeling back. And it will suck. It will suck. Your body will be like, what the fuck are you doing? I hate this. This hurts. Don't do this. Stop doing this. But then what will happen is it's like called a metabolic feeling. You'll start to feel the muscle get sore, the mind will resist, and fear will kick in. But then eventually it will start to contract, it will start to get warm, you'll start to feel it come back to life, and all of a sudden it will switch on, it will reactivate. And you'll feel that bicep come back on. And then what happens, this is phenomenal. You do maybe one session, this can often happen in. It just happened for me when I had an injury. After years, I sat down and just went back and did proper work on the thing, and it just solved it all. But also just from working, the muscle will switch back on, and then all of a sudden, you know, after a couple of sessions, one session, you feel it turn back on. You can actually feel it physically in your body, and then what will happen is the whole space will, all those referral pains will go away. Because it's almost like, you know, you had a building that was wobbling, and so everybody inside the building was panicking. This is what was going on in this space. But then you just put one of the pillars back in, and the building stays secure, and then everybody relaxes. Everybody calms down. This is exactly what happens here. Strength solves pain, because pain is like fear. Okay? And so you reestablish the functionality of the bicep, and then the whole space calms down and works again. And this is a very, very universal truth. You need to learn how to do reactivation exercises. And in fact, the pain is the thing you need to go towards. Once you have enough rest, you need to be going towards the pain and experiencing that pain and intelligently reactivating that pain. Don't go back and do, you know, 1,000 kg bicep curls, because you'll just hurt yourself again. But go in and reactivate with intelligent usage, and you will get this place turned on once again, and boom, there you go, you're laughing. Now this is a big deal. This is how it works, because this maps exactly to my experience with dealing with psychological trauma. And of course, you can't take this attitude unless you've got some type of performance in mind. If you say to yourself, oh, it hurts a little bit, if you are thinking, how can I get my bicep functional again? You'll be thinking about the goal, and then this will allow you to deal with the injury an awful lot better. So what you see then with trauma, normal trauma, like psychological trauma, is a very similar pattern. Something happens to someone, you get bullied, and it develops this, what we call, you could say, a psychological wound. You know, you feel emotionally tortured by something. You feel like you're not good enough. You get scared around large groups of people, whatever it is. Sometimes it can be quite extreme, where you develop these sort of seizure patterns. I've had these before. So, you know, every time you hear a certain song, or every time someone looks at you a certain way, or someone says your name in a certain way, you get triggered. This is what actual PTSD is like, a triggering experience. You're sitting down, there's a loud bang, and you go, and all of a sudden you have a panic attack. And this is because deep down there's this psychological issue. And so what most people do is drug you, of course, or get you to talk about anything, your mother or something like this. But in reality, the thing you need to do is obviously give it a bit of time, like maybe a breakup or a war zone or something like that. Give it maybe a year or so. And then what you need to do is sit down and go to the experience. Go to the experience like you're trying to reactivate a muscle. Dive into the experience and viscerally try to reinvigorate that experience and bring it back to life. Bring it back to life so that you can feel it once again. Go through all the gory details so that it courses through your veins, and what we call reintegrate what is unconscious. This is what Jung meant by this. You dive in and you grab the pain, grab the inactivation, try to make sense of what happened to you, comprehend what happened to you, go over what happened to you, face the shadow, face the horror, face the pain, reanimate it and bring it back to life. And this is you like reactivating the bicep. And all of a sudden, if you do this, you'll have several traumas. Everybody sort of does in a way. And you knock these off one by one. This is what's phenomenal. You reactivate this part of yourself and you gain it as an asset. Just like when you turn the bicep on, all of a sudden you become stronger. And the bicep will have a deeper mind-muscle connection, so you might even become more capable of using it. And so what will happen is your punches get more powerful. You switch back on and you reactivate potential and capacity, which will help you perform. And so in some sense, injuries are one of the greatest things that can happen to you, because they give you the opportunity to reconnect with your body properly and develop a deeper connection with them if you do it properly. It's the same with mental problems. You can go in and you can look at this experience that happened to you and use the power of your logos to confront it, to re-articulate it, to face it once again, and you turn it then into this tool, this story that you can tell. Everybody loves hearing about stories about a war zone. If you've ever been through sexual abuse or violent abuse, you know, a lot of people go through that, and a lot of people struggle. Higher IQ people find this easier because they're better at articulating things. So a lot of people struggle to make sense of what happened to them. And you could be one of those people that could guide someone out of the darkness. You could be one of those people that could articulate to them the meaning of their pain, the meaning of their suffering, the meaning of their trauma. You have a special capacity you can develop here. You can understand how to grab feelings with your words. You'll become better at writing and all these type of things. And this is precisely how trauma needs to be worked on. This is what the point of trauma integration is. This is how it should work. This is psychology done well. And the thing about this is that it is not a 15-year therapy relationship. It is not some type of, it's a very sharp process. It's like going to a physiotherapist. You don't want to see that motherfucker often. He, you know, oh, come in and I'll massage you and get you to do exercises. A good physiotherapist will be like, here, one session, there's your problem. This is the exact muscle you need to articulate. I'll give you a little bit of massaging to try to release any muscles I possibly can. Here's the exercises that will turn it on with you. You're good there. You know, come back to me maybe in 3 weeks or something like that, and we can check this stuff out. Now, this is precisely the approach I'm trying to take with this, because I understand the power of trauma. I understand the importance of trauma. I understand the fact that it's not done properly, and I am interested in giving you proper tools in order to deal with this stuff, not so you can dwell on yourself and be someone who's a whoopee, who's stuck inside your head, introverted and getting lost in nonsense realm. I want to show you how you can take something like trauma and transform it into a proper asset. I want to teach you the proper skills in order to articulate these problems that happen to you, so you can gain the ability to write, the ability to speak, the ability to articulate yourself, the ability to present yourself. Then, of course, the ability to heal, the ability to overcome trauma, and the ability to use this in a forward-thinking way. And, of course, installing that mindset where you're not a fucking pussy, but you're actually doing it in a way that's intelligent, that is going to transform your life. You're putting out good energy into the world. You're putting out strong, commanding energy that is not a victim to pain and is not spreading a message of victimhood of pain, but instead commanding the authority, commanding affirmation for the pain, commanding this ability to say, you know, I'm actually kind of glad that I went through that bad experience, because it allowed me to develop a deeper experience of my soul, to integrate this suffering more, and allowed me to realign myself and build my mind around something hard. It made me hard, and it made me better, and it's allowed me to perform the way I am. If you go on and look at all these TED Talks and all this type of stuff, this is always the type of stuff that you see. People who are talking about their past, talking about their pain, talking about the great struggles they overcame in their life, talking about their great heroes' journeys and whatnot. And if you are interested in Jungian psychology, this is precisely the way that you need to approach it. You need to understand it as an ability for you to dive into your past, go on a hero's journey, claim these pieces of trauma, and get the fuck out of there and go and live a real life. Return to the real world and actually integrate it into your real life, instead of being lost in the woo land of, you know, out of touch thinking and all this type of stuff. So if you're interested in this, if you want to learn how to do psychology properly, if you want to learn how to integrate your shadow, all these jargon words that you're talking about, this is the process that I talk about. This is the way that I look at it. It's very, very powerful. It gives you access to an immense amount of very, very powerful performative techniques, such as being able to speak, being able to write, being able to heal yourself, being able to deal with emotional pain. It gives you a huge amount of assets, all using a very, very simple process and a very, very simple mindset. The only problem is you need someone severe who can think about it. This is why I am so useful, because I'm someone who has that severity, who has that clarity on what these experiences are and can present it to you in the proper way. So if you want to dive into yourself and come to understand some of your past problems and go through that process, reactivate some of those pains and turn it into something useful so that you can go out and perform in the world, which is the only type of person I'm interested in. I'm not interested in serving your weakness, serving your victimhood. That is childish. That is not useful to us where we are now. I want to allow you to become assertive. I don't want to deny your internal experience, but I don't want you to dwell on it and suck me down into that bad energy. If you're interested in that and you want to work with me, let's talk about that then. Drop down in below, there'll be links to book calls with me. There'll be links where you can actually just sign up if you're so interested. Check down in the description, it will have all that information there. Sign up, let's get going on this, and if you're really interested, we can dive in and we can use it to change your life and build an asset for you that you can use in your life.